In a dark room lit only by the flickering light of a computer screen, a young man was intensely focused on a tense ranked game match. Every move he made was precise, as if he had been born to live in a virtual world. After the match ended, he stood up, had breakfast, slung his backpack over his shoulder, and quietly went to school. His life had always been dull and repetitive. The endless cycle of exams and grades had gradually worn him out. Only in games could he fight, take risks, and experience the thrill that real life could never provide. He longed for a truly stimulating game, a world that could make his heart genuinely race, and then it came in a way no one could have expected. While walking down the street, Akira suddenly came face to face with a bizarre man, a giant of a figure stepping out of a car, as if tearing apart the fabric of ordinary life. People around him panicked and fled, and a mysterious countdown timer began to appear. Without any warning, the man threw a punch at Akira, but the reflexes of a seasoned gamer saved him. Akira dodged at the last second. Without hesitation, he jumped onto a nearby bicycle and sped off at full speed. Behind him, the giant roared and chased after him like a rampaging monster. Akira used everything he had learned from games, analyzing the terrain and quickly veering into an abandoned building by the roadside. He climbed a tall pillar and set up a trap using rope. When the man stepped inside, he triggered the trap, causing the entire pillar above to crash down and strike him hard. Thinking it was over, Akira was shocked when the man stood up and charged again as if unscathed. In a decisive moment, Akira grabbed a metal rod, waited for the perfect moment when the man lost balance, and drove it straight through his body. The giant collapsed, and Akira had officially survived. At that moment, a woman appeared and greeted him. She said she was very impressed that he managed to kill her pet and still survive. However, she asserted that the battle just now was meant to be unwinnable. The countdown appeared again, and a beam of light shot out, piercing through Akira's body. He collapsed, but instead of dying, he awoke in a massive hall filled with unfamiliar people and the same woman from earlier. She introduced herself as a guide named Mion and announced that everyone present was no longer considered to exist in the real world. They had died and must now obey the rules of this place. No more freedom, no more laws, only the rules of the game. Mion raised her right arm, and in an instant, it transformed into a massive cannon. She threatened that anyone who resisted would be punished immediately. She then explained the rules. Each person had their powers sealed by a wristband, and only when the light turned green would their abilities reactivate after 5 seconds. In addition, anyone who used their powers to kill a test subject would not be punished. That was the basic rule. A girl named Yuri stood up and asked why they had been chosen. Mion replied that it was all just a coincidence. Just then, Miss Yang appeared and announced it was time to return to their rooms. Everyone would be tested and trained in their abilities. Akira stepped into the room assigned to him, his mind filled with questions. He didn't know what his ability was or why he was here. Mion continued to watch him through a surveillance monitor, eagerly anticipating what Akira would show. As for Akira, when he opened his ability pouch, all he found was confusion and uncertainty. He had no idea where to begin, but deep within his eyes, something had started to awaken. To calm himself and think clearly, Akira decided to eat a sweet placed on the table. The sweetness melted on his tongue and cleared his mind. He sat and reflected on everything that had happened. Every little detail made him uneasy, especially Mion, the woman who always smiled mysteriously but acted so unpredictably. Suddenly, a loud thud echoed from the wall beside him as if something had just struck it. Akira jumped up, his heart skipping a beat. He guessed someone was testing their power. If so, then what was his power? If he were suddenly attacked, what could he do to fight back? Based on the rules Mion had previously announced. Akira understood clearly that this place was designed to force people like him to fight each other. Live or die, there was no room for hesitation. Yet that didn't frighten him. On the contrary, it excited him, like stepping into a real game. And this time, he decided to play seriously, no hiding, no backing down. After a period of waiting, Mion's familiar voice echoed, announcing that the battle was ready to begin. The one-on-one program was officially underway. Akira stepped into a classroom, where he faced his first opponent. The young man immediately issued a threat, warning Akira to give up unless he wanted to waste his strength, as his ability was extremely dangerous. Akira stayed silent, his gaze unwavering. The starting alert sounded. The wristbands on both their wrists turned green, and a 5-minute countdown appeared. Their abilities were now activated. The wooden stick in the opponent's hand instantly transformed into a sharp sword. Without hesitation, Akira chose to retreat, knowing that in a direct confrontation, he would likely lose. He quickly ran into a closed room, darkness covering the hallways and setting the stage for a tense pursuit. His opponent kept shouting threats, saying that Akira must have no combat power if he had to keep running like that. But when Akira stepped out from the shadows, he denied it, saying his power was too dangerous to be used carelessly. As soon as those words left his mouth, Madoka lunged forward right as Akira activated his skill. A feather appeared in his hand. Calmly, he introduced his ability, turning his arm into a cannon. Immediately afterward, Madoka took a hit. He collapsed, the sword reverted to a piece of wood, and he no longer dared to attack. Akira advanced, raised his arm toward him, and ordered him to surrender. Madoka clenched his teeth and admitted defeat. Mion announced Akira as the winner. Miss Yang, standing nearby, asked why such a powerful ability hadn't been used from the start. Mion just smiled slightly and asked back, did she really think Akira's ability was a cannon? It was all just an illusion. Akira had lied. He had deliberately borrowed the image of Mion's own ability to deceive his opponent. His true power was the Fabricator. He could possess any ability as long as the opponent believed it was real. The most important factor was the timing of the revelation, the moment when the opponent couldn't doubt. Akira had successfully created that exact moment and trapped Madoka. After the battle, Akira began to explore the limits of this ability. He understood that the content and difficulty of this world depended entirely on each person's power. For him, this wasn't just an interesting skill, it was a chance to flip everything upside down. For now, he would follow the missions assigned by the organization, but afterward, he would definitely make Mion regret ever giving him such an overpowered ability. On Yuri's side, she was determined to find a way back. Rewinding time to the past when she was still in the real world, she had always resented the phrase, just a coincidence. When she and her two best friends came across a dog on the street, the dog was friendly to the others, but as soon as she reached out her hand, it growled and barked loudly as if she were the one thing that didn't belong in its world. Her friend simply said, "It's just a coincidence." When Yuri kindly offered a towel to a gloomy young man sitting by the roadside, it was just a coincidence that he turned out to be a stalker. From that moment on, he clung to her like a dark shadow that never left. When she returned home, her mother had also, coincidentally, brought home a man. That man had a daughter, and before long, her mother, coincidentally, had another little girl and forced Yuri to take care of her. She gradually grew tired of this life. But one day, she, coincidentally, saw that stalker standing on the rooftop, eyes blank, about to do something drastic. As someone who could never turn away from others' suffering, Yuri immediately ran up. She climbed out onto the railing, trying to pull him back, but he pulled both of them down instead. And so it ended with a death she never had time to understand. When she awoke from her memories, Yuri suddenly remembered the reason she had been brought to this place, and according to Mion, it was all just a coincidence. She had been confined in a room so tightly shut that even the door had no handle. Everything was cold and silent, like a form of invisible imprisonment. Driven to madness, Yuri kept kicking the door and screaming to be let out, demanding to go home. All of it was recorded on camera. Yuri said nothing, silently tearing open the blind pouch to study the ability she had been given. After reading the information, she walked to the wall next to the room, placed her hand on it, and closed her eyes. A sudden explosion echoed, startling Akira in the room next door. Excited, Yuri immediately tried it on the sealed door, but it was completely useless. The disappointment made her even more frustrated, and she began to think her ability was pointless. Yuri felt this world was utterly unfair, where nothing ever went according to plan. Back then, she had secretly saved up 1,000,000 yen without telling her mother, intending to move out and start a new life on her own. But when living with the new daughter of her mother's boyfriend, just a single glance or gesture from the little girl was enough to make Yuri remember her own younger self the day her mother bluntly told her that she too was just a coincidence, the result of a passing man in her life. Snapping back to the present, an announcement rang out. Yuri had been selected for the next one-on-one match. Her opponent was a giant, his massive body nearly 3 times her size. Every step he took made the ground shake, and the thick muscles on his chest tensed with each movement. The man greeted her, and the more he spoke, the more he revealed his true nature, a filthy, depraved pervert. He claimed he could tell from just a whiff that Yuri was still untouched. His ability was scent detection. In life, he was the type of man who hunted down and bought off high school girls, a disgusting monster in human form. As he charged toward Yuri, she instantly leapt up and delivered a powerful kick to his face, swelling it on impact. But to a pervert like him, the harder the target, the more aroused he became. He was no exception. He even shamelessly stripped off his pants to fight, clearly hoping to unsettle Yuri and make her avert her gaze. The sheer vileness of it threw Yuri off. She couldn't stay calm when forced to stare at something so revolting. The man lifted her high off the ground, trapping her in his muscular arms, his breath hot and heavy against her ear as he sniffed her like a lunatic. Yuri's struggles did nothing to stop him. On the contrary, they triggered a memory in him of the day he had assaulted a young girl. The girl, though small, was clever. After finding his business card and learning where he worked, she came back to extort him, demanding 200,000 yen or she'd expose him at his company. It was because of that greed that the girl's life ended at the hands of a monster disguised as a man. The pervert recounted this story with a twisted gleam in his eyes, admitting that he'd become addicted to that feeling. He thought he'd have to live without the scent of schoolgirls in this place, but then he met Yuri. Wasn't that just another coincidence? Those words, just a coincidence, cut through Yuri's heart like a knife. All the tragedies and resentments in her life had started with those very words. In that instant, Yuri activated her ability. She clenched the pervert's arm with such force that the muscles twisted and shrank under the pressure. Not stopping there, she unleashed a flurry of bone-crushing punches, her cold eyes now devoid of hesitation. Yuri's ability was a 5-fold increase in physical strength, and when she hit, she did so with the weight of every pain life had thrown at her. The announcement sounded. Yuri was the winner. Miss Yong stood in shock. With a power like that, most people would struggle just to stand at first, yet Yuri had gone toe-to-toe with a giant pervert and crushed him without mercy. Only now did Miss Yong begin to believe what Mion had once said, that this was a skill only those with integrity and instinct could wield. Could Yuri be a genius? Meanwhile, Yuri clenched her fist tightly. In her heart, a vow echoed to her little sister Lilia, "I will come home to you, no matter what it takes." At the same time, Akira was sitting in his room, silently staring at the camera installed in the corner, thinking to himself, "I'll use this power to crush all of you." He was merely testing whether the organization could read his mind. But since there was no reaction, he guessed maybe they could read it, but were deliberately ignoring him. However, he didn't care much if they truly knew. Then he'd show them exactly what they wanted to see. Akira found his power strange. His body didn't feel tired. There was no sense of energy drain, and the power seemed to generate endlessly. He wondered where this energy actually came from. At that moment, Mion suddenly appeared and explained that it was lifespan, created from the life force of humans. Every time Akira used his ability, someone on the other side of the world would die. As soon as she finished speaking, Mion burst into laughter and said she was just joking. Akira snapped awake. It was just a dream. The door to his room opened and someone walked in to take him to the next program. Akira entered a new room where several people were already waiting. Mion's voice came through a speaker placed at the center of the table, announcing that the second program would be a team battle divided into 5-person groups and would begin in 2 hours. The combat group of 5 included Akira, Yuri, Kumajiri, Madoka, and Sawatari. Akira analyzed the situation. It seemed the goal was for them to kill each other, so there was a high chance they'd face many enemies. But if it was a team battle, effective coordination would require revealing one's abilities. He began to wonder whether he should tell his teammates the truth or not. The first to introduce himself was the old man Sawatari. He pulled out a button and turned it into a rope. His ability was to transform buttons into ropes. Yuri couldn't believe it and thought it was just a magic trick, demanding that he tell the truth. She then honestly introduced her own ability. Madoka had the power to turn tree branches into swords. Kumajiri wasn't quite sure what his power was. Seemed like he was invincible for 2 seconds, but since he hadn't dared to use it yet, he said, "seemed like." Besides that, he was also a professional wrestler. Finally, it was Akira's turn. Naturally, he couldn't reveal his trump card, so he simply claimed his ability was turning his arm into a cannon. Akira understood clearly that if he told the wrong person the truth, he could lose his life. so keeping this secret was a must. He suddenly asked Madoka about his wound, a seemingly casual question, but in fact meant to make everyone believe even more in the fake canon ability he had claimed. At the same time, in his mind, he kept pondering one thing: his power was activated based on the opponent's thoughts. So who exactly was the opponent here? If opponents only meant enemies, then in front of allies, his power wouldn't activate. He felt fortunate that Sawatari was in the group, a person so naive, who not only displayed his power openly, but also talked a lot, thanks to which Akira attracted less attention. To him, Yuri was the key piece in the team. As the team was about to enter the battle room, Sawatari suddenly turned serious. He reminded them of the rule Mion had previously mentioned: if given the chance, kill the opponent. No matter how good or decent they may seem, under special circumstances, anyone could become ruthless. All 5 of them stepped onto a large battle arena. Mion announced that each member would be assigned to fight one-on-one, and the outcome of the 5 duels would determine the winning team. Each match would only end when one of the following conditions was met: falling off the stage, unconsciousness, surrender, or death. The first match was Sawatari versus Kashi Rin. Akira quickly realized that the whole group had been tricked. From the way the 5-man team was arranged to the preparation time, it all led everyone to mistakenly believe they'd fight as a team. So everyone had casually revealed their real abilities, but in the end, it turned out to be one-on-one matches where there was no need to reveal anything. That meant they had accidentally provided information to people who could become enemies in the future. Akira had a strong feeling that everything so far was just the beginning of a much darker scheme. Sawatari stepped into the arena. He saw Rin, from beginning to end, was wrapped in a white blanket, looking as if she wasn't quite ready. Rin suddenly suggested, "Would you consider surrendering?" He curiously asked about Rin's outer cloak, wondering if her ability was related to it. Rin said it was just a misunderstanding and removed the cloak, revealing a pink bikini underneath that accentuated her voluptuous body. She subtly hinted that if Sawatari surrendered, she would repay him generously. Of course, he didn't give in to beauty, so he pulled out a button and proposed a game where whoever guessed wrong would have to surrender. Sawatari's teammates understood, since his ability wasn't combat-oriented. He had turned it into a safe 50-50 bet. Rin picked heads, Sawatari picked tails. Just as the coin was tossed, countless sharp spears suddenly pierced Sawatari's back. It turned out to be Rin's doing. She pretended to bet, but had intended to eliminate him from the start. Akira also realized the flaw in Sawatari's strategy. If the enemy intended to kill from the start, this was how it would end. The moment he let his guard down, she struck. Before he could even understand Rin's ability, she had already put her cloak back on. Clearly, Rin hadn't made any large movements, but arrows had appeared from thin air. While everyone was outraged, Madoka said at least Sawatari's sacrifice helped them identify the enemy's power. That statement angered both Yuri and Kumajiri, who demanded he take it back. Akira grew worried the incident had caused internal conflict within the group and stepped in to mediate, since now was not the time to argue. The next match was Kumajiri versus Ringo. Learning from before, Kumajiri decided to close the distance quickly to respond in time. As soon as the handcuffs turned green and were released, he dashed toward the opponent, determined to push the girl off the stage gently so she wouldn't get hurt. But Ringo suddenly raised her hand and surrendered. Everything happened in a flash, shocking both teams. Returning to her side, she reported that she couldn't defeat Kumajiri. Even after using her ability to copy his power, nothing happened. Rin furiously grabbed Ringo by the neck, angrily yelling that she should have at least figured out Kumajiri's power, accusing her of intentionally holding back, saying if they lost, the entire team would be punished. Zokamyoin tried to calm Rin's rage and said she would win the third match, so Rin let Ringo go. Ringo's ability is to copy the opponent's ability at 1/10 strength. In truth, her ability also lets her immediately identify the copied person's power, so she learned Kumajiri's ability was to become invincible for 2 seconds. But since her version was only 0.2 seconds long, it was meaningless, so she surrendered. The third match was between Madoka and Zokamyoin. Stepping onto the stage, Madoka thought strategically with her hands bound. She couldn't draw her sword, and approaching recklessly would be dangerous, so it was best not to rush in. When the cuffs were released, Zokamyoin pulled out a slingshot. She was confident that striking first would secure her victory. Madoka took out a wooden stick and casually swatted away the steel marble that came flying at her. The marble transformed into a massive iron ball that slammed into the ground. It turned out Zokamioin's ability was to turn a marble into a giant iron ball. Madoka felt lucky she hadn't tried to catch it. Zokamioin quickly fired another marble, shortening the time so it would enlarge before being knocked away. Madoka slashed it apart with her sword and said her intentions were too obvious. Then Zokamioin fired 3 marbles at once. Madoka either sliced or dodged all of them as he closed in on her. Internally, she thought Akira must have also realized by now her true ability was turning a tree branch into a sword that could cut through anything. Zokamioin feared this opponent she had no chance of winning, but seeing Rin behind her filled her with dread and confusion. Madoka pointed her sword and said, "Your power can't beat mine. If you surrender now, it's still not too late." Zokamioin, choosing to go all in, began frantically hurling marbles at her opponent. Giant marbles fell down one after another, surrounding Madoka in the center as if trying to block all of his paths. However, her efforts were in vain as Madoka was able to slash through them. Zokamioin reserved the final marble for her opponent, and just as he cut through that one, it turned out another marble was already being launched. She approached him at close range by leaping high into the air and pulling the slingshot taut, believing that this way Madoka wouldn't be able to slash it. However, the rubber string of her slingshot was sliced through by a knife, causing the marble to drop. Zokamioin realized that while he was in the blind spot of the marble, Madoka had snapped off a tree branch. As he pointed his sword at Zokamioin and demanded her surrender, she suddenly said thank you, because he was so strong and overconfident that he had underestimated her and given her this opportunity. The last marble she had fired earlier had bounced off the cliff wall and rolled gently to Madoka's feet. Before he could react, it suddenly exploded and shot straight up, striking him in a vulnerable spot, making his cold face immediately twist in pain. Zokamioin emerged victorious while Madoka could only clutch his wound and regret his arrogance that felt like divine punishment. The fourth match was between Koji and Akira. As he stepped onto the stage, Akira was still troubled by the old question who exactly counted as an opponent within the scope of his ability. Among the 8 participants, was it only the person in front of him who was considered? He looked at Koji and wondered if this person was the only valid target. Then when and how was that defined? Under what conditions? And with whom? When would his ability actually activate? Unable to keep guessing, Akira decided to carry out a real-world experiment. As soon as his handcuffs were removed, he checked his own team and saw no changes, meaning his ability couldn't activate with them. Relieved, Akira looked at Koji, who still stood still and showed no signs of attacking. Akira seized the chance to perform a second test. Suddenly, he turned and sprinted downward, startling both the platform and Koji. He stood before Madoka and declared that he would take care of him for being so arrogant and losing twice for that very reason. As soon as he said it, Akira's arm transformed into a giant cannon. The first shot exploded, smoke billowed everywhere, and an entire corner of the wall was blown apart, leaving a deep crater. Fortunately, Madoka reacted in time and dodged to the side. This unexpected performance frightened Koji, who realized that Akira even dared to attack his own teammate. Akira approached Koji and began his third experiment. Since Koji was now convinced Akira's ability was the cannon, Akira transformed his arm into a real cannon. As soon as the shot was fired, Koji raised his hand to block it, and the cannonball immediately vanished like smoke. Alarmed, Koji realized he had just accidentally revealed his own ability. Not missing the chance, Akira fired several more times. Koji could still block them, but anxiety was clearly written on his face. Akira then hurled a shoe directly at Koji's face, causing him to instinctively raise both hands to block at that moment. Akira had already crept up behind him, pointing the cannon directly at his nape, freezing the air. Based on his previous reactions, Akira deduced that Koji's ability was to nullify anything he touched, but it required his right hand to be in contact with the ground. Seeing his secret exposed, Koji had no way out and immediately raised his hands in surrender. Akira's experiment had succeeded beyond expectations. Before that, he had tried to mentally designate a teammate as the opponent and activate his cannon ability, but there was no response. This proved that the ability couldn't be activated if the opponent didn't genuinely perceive Akira as a threat. When Akira turned to Madoka and threatened to shoot, Madoka's inherent arrogance made him instantly view Akira as a danger, and at that moment, Akira's arm transformed into a cannon. Finally, Akira tried focusing his intent on the entire opposing team, viewing them as enemies, and the ability did activate but only worked when the opponent was on the same platform. From this, Akira concluded that for his ability to activate, it wasn't enough for him alone to view someone as the enemy. The other person also had to clearly perceive Akira as a direct threat. Those standing outside the arena, whether they considered Akira an enemy or not, were unaffected by his ability because they were not consciously aware that they were being targeted. Akira's power functioned like a reflection between subjective thought and objective perception, only detonating when both streams of awareness intersected at the same point. The fifth match began between Yuri and Oji. He was the stalker who once drove Yuri into tragedy, dragging her into death in the most literal sense. The moment she saw him, Yuri lost her composure completely, her eyes blazing as if ready to incinerate the stands. This was the man who had destroyed her life, and now that both of them had fallen into this world, with past grudges and new hatred combined, Yuri was determined to settle it once and for all. She ordered Oji to stand still, and he obediently did so because he had the ability to turn his body into steel. Yuri charged straight at him and delivered a punch that sent him flying out of the arena, slamming into the wall. Yuri won this match cleanly. Akira sat analyzing Yuri's victory and realized that just multiplying arm and leg strength by 5 wouldn't make her that terrifying. The issue lay in the fact that all her physical strength had been amplified foot speed, body torque, all of it worked together to produce a punch of overwhelming destructive power. Even if the opponent's body was as hard as steel, they couldn't withstand a hit like that. After the match, Mion appeared and announced the third program. First came the punishment for the losing team. Everyone was blindfolded and separated into 2 different rooms. The winning team was treated to a lavish feast, while the losing team, well, the boys were locked in an empty room with only water to drink, and the girls were forced to wear embarrassing and ridiculous outfits to serve the victors. Later, Mion returned, this time to announce that from here on out, each team would proceed through a different program. Wearing bunny costumes had only been an opening prank. The real punishment was just beginning. The whole team was led into a vast hall. There, the staff said that from now on, each person would walk their own path, and only at the end would they find out what awaited them. Kumajiri, maintaining his big brother demeanor, reminded everyone that even if they became enemies, the goal was to stay alive and return. When the group had dispersed and only Akira and Yuri remained, he gently encouraged her to survive so she could return the handkerchief he had once used to tend her wounds. Yuri solemnly promised she would return. Then the 2 parted ways and stepped into their separate journeys. Akira entered a room with a stone pedestal bearing a telephone. Mion explained the third program. He currently had 100 points, and his task was to gather 1,000 points. The door ahead opened and Akira stepped into a vast space. Mion announced that 13 hours and 18 minutes remained. For the next 30 minutes, players would earn 10 points for each defeated opponent. Akira knew he was in Zone A and immediately chose to run down the road ahead. He quickly encountered his first opponent, but this person only wanted to talk. He had come to recruit, not to fight. At that moment, Yuri was being chased by a group and happened to cross paths with Akira again. It turned out that the 4 people chasing Yuri were from the red team, while the young man who approached Akira belonged to the green team. Both factions were trying to recruit members. The red team wanted to bring Yuri and Akira over to their side, but Katsuya, a member of the green team, didn't want that to happen. He used his ability to turn a tree branch into a bow and told the 2 of them to escape quickly. From the red team's side, Matsushita was dispatched since he possessed the power to turn his arm into a cannon. Yuri panicked and shouted that this guy had the same power as Akira. The red team's leader, full of confidence, immediately froze upon hearing the word same and instantly believed it. Seizing the opportunity, Akira tricked them into manifesting a cannon on their arm. He pretended to fire once and then ran off with the other 2. When Matsushita received the order to shoot, Akira waited for the perfect moment to fire back. The 2 streams of fire clashed, creating a massive explosion. Akira's cannon was clearly stronger, sending the entire red team flying. Matsushita then trembled like a leaf, unable to even stand. The whole team lost their trump card and fell into chaos. Once they were temporarily safe, Katsuya talked about the leader of the red team. This team was led by a pair who were both powerful in ability and wicked in behavior. Akira proposed to go to the green team's base. It turned out to be a peaceful farm where there were pregnant women, children, and the elderly. He felt that a leader who could protect such people must be trustworthy, and he decided to join. When he met the leader Yudo, the man was overjoyed to gain someone strong like Akira. When asked about Yuri's power, both of them were stunned as if struck by lightning because it was an A+ level ability, even surpassing a cannon. Yuto was so touched that he burst into tears, praising Katsuya for doing a great job bringing in 2 powerful members. He began explaining the situation of the third program. Points from the device were the core of everything and could be earned by completing missions assigned by the organization. Points functioned as currency and were used to exchange for food, medicine, tools, or even information. Each person's mission was to survive and accumulate 1,000 points. When he first arrived, people split into small groups for convenience in moving and sharing points. But then a certain group suddenly grew to dozens of people in a short time, followed by rumors that they had started kidnapping those who didn't follow the mission. Akira guessed that the red team didn't intend to leave this place to proceed to the next program. Yuto agreed, saying that no one wanted to stay here forever, but the next program might not be any easier. The red team chose to build their own kingdom by using strength to dominate, preferring to be kings here rather than continue forward. At the same time, the red team's leader Isekai was interrogating the 4 men who had failed to capture people. Rin had now joined the red team. Isekai wanted to execute the 4, but deputy leader Mayasa stopped him because she didn't want to get blood on her clothes. Thanks to that, the 4 escaped punishment. However, Mayasa began to take notice of Akira, believing that aside from the cannon, he was hiding another secret. Yudo continued to explain the current factions. The red team ruled the weak through violence and was known for enslaving people. Unable to just stand by, they formed the green team to protect the weak. There was also the blue team, a neutral faction that didn't interfere with either side. Thus, the situation was currently divided into 3 clear factions. The red team was the human hunting faction, the green team opposed them, and the blue team remained neutral. Yudo believed that in the near future, the green team would inevitably have to confront the red team, and therefore greatly needed Akira's group's help. Yuri immediately agreed. When he turned to ask Akira, the boy didn't respond but stepped forward and tried to use his cannon to threaten Yuto, only to find that his ability wouldn't activate. He began to suspect that Yuto had the ability to suppress others or simply didn't trust his own power. But a few seconds later, the cannon did actually appear. Yuto was surprised and asked if there was anything else Akira needed from him. If he fired, maybe he'd find the answer he was looking for. Akira decided to fire. The cannon shot that Akira released didn't cause even the slightest injury to Yuto. Faced with Yuto's calm reaction, Akira realized that Yuto wasn't simply testing his power, but wanted to see if he was truly capable of standing against the dangerous forces to come. Yuto's ability could even withstand the cannon, and he had purposely allowed Akira to shoot in order to confirm it. Akira clearly knew that the man had doubted him at first, yet now let him fire freely, truly an unpredictable leader. Right then, Momoko entered and reported that the number of new members joining this time was far greater than ever before. Yuto believed this might be an opportunity to change the current balance of power. Meanwhile, Katsuya worried that there wouldn't be enough space for everyone. He then suggested that he and Yuri share a room. When they finally had some privacy, Katsuya quietly handed Yuri a piece of paper. Yuri nervously thought he was about to confess his feelings, but it turned out the paper said, "My real ability is telepathy." Under Akira's guidance, Yuri closed her eyes and focused on imagining that the boy was sending words to her. A moment later, his voice echoed in her mind, telling her to signal if she could hear him, and to her surprise, Yuri really did hear it. Both were overwhelmed with joy for successfully establishing telepathy. Akira suggested they use this method to communicate from now on to avoid being eavesdropped on. He understood all too well that as a leader, Yuto would definitely be wary of anyone with superior abilities, especially those whose trustworthiness had not yet been verified. He affirmed that they should become a pair who coordinate their abilities, and if Yuri needed anything, he would give his full support. During their conversation, Akira gradually understood the reason behind Yuri's determination to return. She was searching for her younger sister Lilia. His own goal, however, was different. He wanted to beat the game and have a rematch with Mion, the one who had given him his power. He swore he would make her regret turning him into a tool. After everything, he had come to fully trust Yuri, even revealing that his real power was not telepathy or the cannon, but the ability to recreate the powers the opponent believed they possessed. At that moment, his phone rang, displaying an image of Mion. It was an announcement for a new quest, large-scale subjugation, which would begin at 9 am the next day at the ruins of District D's Plaza. Each ghoul defeated would yield 30 points, and during the quest, players were not allowed to attack each other. The next morning, Yuto assigned teams and sent Akira and Yuri to serve as guerrillas, as it would be easier to use powers with fewer people. When they arrived, Mion sat atop the ruined plaza and welcomed them to the official program. Grotesque ghoul monsters appeared, identical to the one that had nearly killed Akira in real life. The battle began, and the ghouls furiously attacked. Yuto immediately commanded the tank units of each team to form a defensive circle. One ghoul charged at him but couldn't make contact and was instantly restrained by a tank who grabbed its arm. Then, the executioner group rushed in and decapitated it. The three-layer coordination of tank, restrain, and executioner ran smoothly. Akira quickly dispatched a ghoul with his cannon. IG, the leader of Team D, whose ability was Iron Wall and whose body was as hard as steel, stood as the main tank. Katsuya asked the nun with them about the effectiveness of the cursed doll, and indeed, when she threw it at a monster, the ghoul was instantly slain. While the green team was dominating, the red team suddenly appeared, bringing with them a group of slaves chained with purple iron collars. Yuto ordered a retreat from the ruins to shift the ghouls' focus to the enemy. However, ghouls continued slaughtering players. Mayasa, with the power of high-interest lending and forced debt collection, ordered the slaves to attack the ghouls. He was eagerly waiting to see how Yuto would react. Without hesitation, Yuto chose to save the people. But to their shock, Mion opened a gate and released a massive composite ghoul monster named Nyan. This was the battle she had truly been anticipating. The green team charged in but was crushed. Even Akira was knocked down. As Nyan was about to finish him, Yuto appeared and told Akira to go save IG. He would handle the monster. Yuto's true ability was revealed. He was the mediator, someone who could negotiate peace and use the power of firm resolve to protect others. Even when attacked by Nyan's flurry of kicks, Yuto remained standing, swearing he would never allow anyone precious to him to be sacrificed again. With a lightning-infused strike, he punched the monster, creating a gaping hole in its chest. The entire plaza shook. Just when they thought it was over, Nyan suddenly rose again. It had devoured the corpses of its kind and regenerated its lost parts, becoming even stronger. As the now unstoppable Nyan rampaged, it was suddenly struck by Akira's cannon. Yuto immediately shouted in anger, demanding to know why he had returned. But Akira had already calculated it. He came back because he had devised a strategy. He and Yuri charged in together, communicating via telepathy so no one else would hear. After luring Nyan into a suitable position, just as it hurled a punch at him and kicked up a thick cloud of dust, Akira suddenly appeared, shoved the cannon barrel straight into its mouth, and fired. It seemed like it was over, but Nyan rose again. At that moment, Isekai charged in and landed a punch that sent its head flying off its body. All the ghouls were wiped out, and the battle officially ended. However, Isekai had no intention of retreating. He declared that he wanted to fight Akira's group 2 against 1, or 3 against 1 if Yuto could still fight. Just as the tension reached its peak, a loud explosion rang out. Mion's cannon had fired straight at Isekai. She coldly stated that she never announced the mission was over. If there's a fight, then fight a proper war. She announced a war game between the red team and the green team, King Hunt. The two teams would be placed in separate zones, and the one that eliminates the opposing king first will win. The objective to protect is not a person, but a device representing the king. Teams are allowed to use any method to steal the opponent's device and connect it to their own system. Mion gave Isekai a hint. Players can hunt down enemy team members to accumulate points, which can be exchanged with her for advantages, such as activating handcuffs that disable any one person. Akira immediately understood that this meant he could lock the opposing leader's ability and then kill him. After the king hunt, one of the two teams, green or red, must be completely eliminated. Mayasa clearly proposed that if the red team wins, the entire green team must die. Only then would it be a thorough resolution. The King Hunt war game would begin in 7 days. Back at base, Yuto called Akira into a private room and bluntly asked about his true ability. He had noticed that the ghoul's attack clearly hit its mark and Akira should not have been able to dodge. What exactly did he do? Akira admitted that his ability wasn't the cannon, but didn't say anything more. At that moment, Kumajiri happened to rescue a green team member from the red team and brought her back to base. There, he met Akira and Yuri again. While everyone was gathered, Mion once again broadcasted an announcement about the King Hunt game. Anyone could join midway and was encouraged to plunge into the war. Akira increasingly realized Mion's scheme. She had orchestrated everything from the start to make the two teams kill each other. While everyone was still being manipulated, the most dangerous one was no longer Mion, it was Mayasa, the deputy leader, who had already started exploiting the situation. Akira began to worry what could he do in the next 7 days, and how should he prepare. At that moment, Ringo came to thank Akira for saving her during the battle with the ghoul. However, during their conversation, she accidentally let slip that she knew his true ability. Realizing she had said too much, since this could be a life or death matter for Akira, Ringo confessed that her ability lets her know others' true powers. For example, she knew Kumajiri's invincibility lasts only 2 seconds. Akira immediately pulled her into a private room and coldly asked why she revealed that. Ringo didn't hide anything. She frankly said her ability is to copy 1/10 of someone else's power, and thanks to that, she can recognize the nature of the power being used. A very useless ability on its own, which is why she needs a partner. She suspected that Akira's ability was similar and asked to become his partner. Akira took note that she even knew the powers of the red team members, and Ringo nodded in confirmation. Not long after, Akira invited Yuri to go with him to meet the blue team. Meanwhile, on the red team's side, 2 key members, Renka and Kamui, were summoned. Mayasa gave clear orders: if you see the enemy on the road, kill them without question. At the same time, the red team member who had been captured by the green team was rescued and brought back to report that the mole had personally witnessed the moment Akira was hit by the ghoul and was completely unharmed, then immediately counterattacked with the cannon. This clearly proved that Akira's true ability was not artillery. Mayasa received the news and immediately informed Ikai. Both of them realized that their King Hunt strategy had to change because the most dangerous person now wasn't leader Yudo, but Akira, with a power none of them could begin to understand. Akira took Yuri to train, knowing he had to prepare for the upcoming battle. He discovered that Yuri had the ability to imagine, and he wanted her to try imagining who she was. Yuri gave it a try and saw that he had turned into Ringo. He realized that she must have met Ringo the day before. Akira had to explain that she had discovered her own power. At this point, the only option was to bring her over as an ally, and between them there were some secret agreements that Yuri was not aware of. When they arrived at the meeting spot with the blue team, that team was already waiting in the forest. The temporary leader of the blue team, Amoto, asked what business they had with him. Akira talked about an upcoming war between the green and red teams in the form of a quest. According to the rules, anyone could freely join the green team, and he wanted the support of the blue team to join as well. He told them that simply participating would earn each member 200 points, and if they managed to steal the device from the red team, they would be paid an additional 500 points. The blue team was currently using all of its accumulated points to recruit mercenaries. Amoto had a request. If his personal condition was met, he might relay the request to his team. He pointed at Yuri and asked to use her as an exchange token, but Akira immediately refused because no one could replace Yuri. If they wanted her, then Amoto himself had to participate and follow Akira's orders. Amoto did not agree to join but said he would pass the message on to the blue team. Before leaving, he added that they wouldn't be able to pull it off anyway. This outcome was already predetermined. There, they also ran into Madoka, who threatened Akira that he would join the red team to become his rival. But Akira didn't care and turned his back indifferently, which enraged him. In Yudo's meeting room, Madame Momoko, representing a group, came to discuss joining the war as a medical team. Yudo accepted because he knew they weren't a burden and each had something they wanted to protect. Moreover, medical teams were essential on the battlefield. The night before the battle, the entire green team gathered for a barbecue, enjoying a peaceful evening before the fight. The next day, the green team arrived at Tower Area 5, where the quest would take place. It turned out that Akira and Yuri's frequent outings were actually to scout and confirm the battlefield location for this mission. From that, they were able to understand the terrain and form strategies. The staff instructed them to turn on their devices. Mion appeared in a video and explained the mission once more. The quest would be completed by stealing devices from the opposing team. Each stolen device earned 1 Mion point. Any device that was stolen would be counted as dead and unusable. The device was linked to a wristband. If it was more than 3 meters away from the wrist, it would also be considered dead. When considered dead, the wristband would activate and the user would no longer be able to use energy or abilities. Additional rules included that inside each tower in the battle area, there would be a device pole. Dropping a device into it would grant 10 Mion points. Accumulated points could be used to ask Mion to broadcast announcements, recover devices, seal abilities, ask for measurements, etc. The final objective was to kill the enemy king's device. Toru knew that sealing the enemy's powers was the key to victory. That team would also try to seal their leader's power, so they had to stop it at all costs. When the red team appeared, the staff announced it was time to choose the king of each team. Mion declared the start of the large-scale mission, Hunt the King. Yuto announced that their first goal was to capture the towers. They had to take at least 3 towers and fortify them, block the Red King's abilities, and predict the Joker troops' actions to apply their strategy. That way, they would win. And one more thing, he said he was truly grateful that everyone had followed him this far. The reason he was here was definitely because of this. Thanks to everyone, he had beautiful memories. Thank you, he said. The entire green team excitedly charged toward the towers. Akira knew there was one thing completely different from the first and second programs. Everyone now carried their own beliefs and determination as they entered. Katsuya reported that his squad had taken one of the towers. They swore to defend the tower to the death. Although they had the advantage in numbers, the members of the red team were overwhelmingly strong. Among them, Ikai was the strongest and also the king of the enemy. When Asuka's second team arrived at the second tower, they encountered Ikai. She couldn't believe it, the enemy king was here. The red team's motto was, "Even the king hunts." Using the device, Asuka was certain Yuri and the others were on their way. Until then, she only needed to hold him off. She swung her sword continuously at Ikai, but he calmly dodged every strike. He easily blocked her sword with just one hand. At that moment, she smirked coldly. He had fallen into her trap. Asuka's ability was to alter the weight of her sword, and the ground beneath Ikai trembled under the crushing pressure of the sword he was blocking. However, Ikai shattered the blade with a single punch, then kicked Asuka into the wall. He tossed her a wooden stick and told her to pick it up and fight him. Weren't her teammates almost here? When they arrived, he would play with her. Kumajiri knew Asuka was fighting Ikai and told the others to go assist her while he stayed behind to protect Haruka. Her ability to control air currents was the key to defending their base. As soon as the others left, Haruka sensed someone approaching. Katsuya and the others were also rushing to rescue Asuka, but Kamui blocked their path. A core member of the red team, Kamui had eliminated many green team members. Even Kumajiri lost a hand during his fight. Akira also encountered Rin. Rin approached Akira under the pretense of fighting, but was actually gathering information, then immediately contacted Madoka to confirm Akira's location. Meanwhile, Kumajiri received a warning from Haruka someone was approaching. That someone was Kano, covered in the blood of their green comrades. He casually asked where Kumajiri's team was. Enraged, Kumajiri lunged at him and grabbed his neck, but the handcuff on his wrist suddenly tightened. Kano's ability was to shrink objects. A thin wire shot from his hand, wrapped around Kumajiri's wrist and constricted. His hand was severed like a rice cake sliced by bamboo strings. Only then did Kumajiri realize their plan: ambush the scattered members while they were trying to save Asuka. Even after losing his hand, Kumajiri calmly bandaged himself and declared the battle had only just begun. Meanwhile, Ikai had been waiting, but no prey had taken the bait. Realizing it was Mayasa's trick, he grew furious at being used and decided to finish Asuka off. But Asuka wasn't afraid of death. She calmly said she'd be waiting for him in hell. Just as Ikai was about to strike, Yuri suddenly appeared and punched him hard, sending him flying like a potato. Despite the pain, Ikai was thrilled to finally meet a worthy opponent. Yuri quickly launched a fierce attack. Her speed, precision, and agility were the result of training with Akira. Knowing she couldn't match Ikai's strength, Akira had trained Yuri to fight using speed and hit and run tactics. She dodged and counterattacked relentlessly, pushing Ikai to the edge. But when he finally grabbed her arm and pulled her close, seemingly turning the tide, it turned out to be a trap Akira had planned. Using his reflex to pull her in, Yuri kneed him in the stomach, followed with a flurry of kicks, and finished with a knee straight to his face, drawing blood. Instead of being discouraged, Ikai became even more excited, while Yuri remained ready to keep fighting. Meanwhile, Yuto discovered that the true spy wasn't just one person. The first was exposed thanks to Ringo, who had verified everyone's abilities at Akira's request. That one had joined the medical team and then mysteriously died after asking Ringo for water. Immediately afterward, the base reported enemy forces approaching. This led Yuto and Ringo to realize that the true traitor was Momoko, who had done it all to protect someone. As for Akira, he was facing off with Madoka deep in the forest, where every branch could become a weapon due to Madoka's power, making it his domain. In the middle of the tension, a swordsman suddenly jumped down and declared he would kill Akira. His name was Rendo. Madoka angrily declared a truce with Akira so she could personally deal with this spotlight-stealing intruder. Even without Yuri by his side, Akira still had another partner, Madoka, the one who always wanted to defeat him. At first, they thought Rendo was just a copy of Madoka, but when he slashed down a row of trees behind them, both were shocked to realize this was the power of invisible slashes. Akira fired a cannon to create smoke and pulled Madoka to hide. While they were hiding, Madoka loudly asked what Rendo's ability was, forcing Akira to signal her to keep quiet. After analyzing, Akira concluded that the cuts weren't caused by the blade, but by an invisible force. If they coordinated well, they could defeat Rendo in 4 moves. Back on the battlefield, Madoka charged first, but was quickly knocked back. Akira took the opportunity to fire a massive cannon, but was also blown back by the recoil. Thinking he had won, Rendo was caught off guard when Akira calmly said, "That was the 5th move, right, Madoka?" The explosion scattered countless wooden fragments. Madoka used her power to turn all of them into daggers and stabbed Rendo directly. Everything had been part of Akira's plan. Meanwhile, Renka was celebrating having defeated many people when suddenly the nun, using her last strength, threw a doll at her feet. Renka collapsed, and the nun also fainted. But Renka stood up, her neck twisting back to normal like nothing happened, then furiously scolded the nun for daring to injure her. Just as Renka was about to attack, Rin appeared. Coldly, she pointed out that she had seen Renka's immortal neck. The two clashed. Rin revealed her ability to turn blood into weapons when injured. She released sharp drops of blood that slashed Renka's face and destroyed a plane behind her. For the second strike, her blood formed swords that pierced Renka's body. But Renka still didn't die and kept charging forward. Rin skillfully dodged, causing Renka's knife to get stuck in a tree, then gently brushed her hand over Renka's wrist. A handcuff appeared and locked her to the tree. Rin went searching for the one controlling the machines behind the scenes and discovered a boy pushing a wooden crate behind some bushes. She stabbed straight through the crate and blood gushed out. Renka collapsed, drained of all strength. It turned out Renka wasn't immortal like the tanks and helicopters, she was merely a puppet, and the real body was the one hiding inside the crate, now pierced by Rin's sword. Rin never believed Renka was immortal because she was sure Mion wouldn't allow someone with that power to exist, so she guessed the real body must be elsewhere. The boy pushing the crate confessed he had the power to turn toys into objects and was being used as a slave. Rin had calculated everything whether the red team won or not. These people wouldn't let her go, so she would strike first. Her deal with the blue team was that she would kill one of the leaders, and after that, they would report to Mion that she was a spy. This way, regardless of which team won, she would be safe. The boy was also eliminated to silence him. At the same time, the battle on Kumajiri's side became intense. Kano wanted badly to see Kumajiri in submission. Herka, using her ability to sense air flow, realized he was in danger. Akira was examining Rendo's sword. Inside the scabbard were 2 layers of wood. Madoka realized Rendo had transformed the inner layer of the scabbard into a blade that could cut through anything, then slid it out. On Kumajiri's side, Kano threw a restraining wire that wrapped around Kumajiri's wrist and activated his shrinking power. He had also laid a few high-tech wires underfoot, which wrapped tightly around Kumajiri's ankle. Kano activated the shrink, forcing Kumajiri to grit his teeth as a part of his body was severed. Kano then looped wires around Kumajiri's neck. At this point, Kano was toying with his opponent's life, wanting to see him beg. Kumajiri had only one thing to say, that he would never forgive Kano. Just as Kano was about to pull the wire, Haruka appeared, throwing herself at Kano and knocking him down. When Kano angrily threw a dagger to make Haruka suffer, Kumajiri used his own body to block the attack. At that near-death moment, he remembered the past when his brother was still alive. A tragic accident had taken his brother's life. But his promise to Kumajiri still remained, that he would always be by Kumajiri's side and be his partner. The spirit of his brother appeared behind him and asked Kumajiri, "You haven't used your ability because you don't want to let me down, right? But it's enough now. You have something you want to protect, don't you?" In that moment, for the first time, Kumajiri decided to use his power, becoming invincible for 2 seconds. His entire body was clad in magnificent iron armor like a warrior. Even though he was completely bound by Kano's ropes, his brother encouraged him, telling him that he was invincible. In those mere 2 seconds, he sent Kano off. On Katsuya's side, he fired an arrow at Kamui, but the arrow was turned into dust by the man's palm. He was very disappointed that he couldn't reach Asuka, but vowed to fight until his last breath. While he was desperately preparing to die, Akira appeared. He replaced Katsuya in this battle so that Katsuya could run off to save Asuka, because he knew he himself would leave Program C. While Katsuya would remain at the base, this place couldn't do without him. Akira's true target from the beginning was Kamui. When his stone hit the man, it dissolved into smoke. He speculated this must be a chemical reaction. That also explained the burn marks on Katsuya. Kamui then exposed Akira's secret. When Akira used the stone to probe him, Kamui realized he couldn't use any divine power. Kamui was curious about the condition to activate Akira's ability, but when he saw him holding Rendo's sword, he was utterly stunned. Kamui couldn't believe Akira had defeated Rendo, and assumed he had used a copy ability. That single strike sent Kamui to the afterlife. It turned out what Akira was holding only existed because of Kamui's belief. Akira discovered that the invisible sword technique was Kamui's ability. Taking this opportunity, Akira took Kamui's device and connected it to his own. To let Kamui die in peace, he didn't reveal what his divine power was, only disclosed that the information they had was leaked by him. Using divine power with no divine effect, this vague info would stir the enemy's imagination. That was Akira's goal. On Yudo's side, they were analyzing the spy's death and guessing who the second person was when he was suddenly shot by Momoko's cannon arm. In utter disbelief, he had known the truth, but didn't want to believe that the person he once trusted was the traitor. It turned out that the red team leader and his companion were both Momoko's sons. She even used Taro to threaten them to drop their devices and seal their abilities. Faced with a child's life, Yudo made his decision and threw away his device. A dead message appeared on screen. She was the one who ended Yudo. Just as she thought everything was over, Ringo appeared and declared that it wasn't the end yet. Mayasa also received a message from Mion saying they hadn't won yet because the king of the green team hadn't been defeated. Seeing Akira walk in, he immediately realized that Akira was the king. On Ringo's side, she was being chased by Momoko, who demanded she reveal who the king was. After hiding for a while, Ringo finally mustered the courage to demand Taro back from Momoko. At that moment, she used the enemy's copied ability. When she fired, she noticed that although the power was exactly 1/10, the speed of the bullet was also 10 times faster. Obviously, her opponent also knew this. The two of them fought fair by placing Taro aside and having a cannon duel. Ringo instinctively fired shots, engulfing the area in thick smoke, and the opponent disappeared. Suddenly, Momoko ambushed her from behind a tree. She rushed in and beat Ringo. Knowing her timid personality lacked the courage to kill, Ringo made her resolve. She fired the cannon at the cliff, causing boulders to fall. She thought if she had to hand Taro over to such a cruel woman, she'd rather let him die. Momoko frantically dug through the rubble, but there was nothing underneath. It turned out Ringo had picked up the child. She had planned this all along to reclaim Taro. She firmly demanded that Momoko seal her powers herself. In the end, Momoko finally gave in and threw the device toward Ringo. Just as Ringo bent down to pick it up, the old woman took the opportunity to lift a rock with the intent to assassinate her. But Ringo noticed and fired a shot at the large rock above, causing an explosion that sent debris tumbling down. At the same time, Mayasa had discovered Akira's team's strategy to eliminate the leader and end the match. On Yuri's side, Madoka had joined the battle. In addition, Kumajiri had also entered the fight. Mayasa realized that Akira had used points to buy his position from Mion. Akira found himself in a dire situation, surrounded by a group of people. Despite the encirclement, he refused to give up and fired a cannon at Mayasa. However, his shot was blocked by a stone marble from Zokamioin, who had become Mayasa's slave. With a snap of his fingers, Zokamioin launched a second marble. A man stepped forward and touched it, and the marble was sliced into countless tiny shards that ricocheted back toward Akira. Akira recalled what Ringo had once said: Ikai and Mayasa had cooperated to create slaves. When she and the others were captured, Ikai appeared, intending to kill them, but Mayasa objected, giving them hope. That hope was exactly the condition needed to activate his ability. Those he saved would become slaves forced to risk their lives for their master. That's why Mayasa was so confident, thinking everything was going according to plan. But Akira wasn't afraid at all because their weakness was not knowing what his true ability was. Still, Mayasa didn't care. At that moment, Mayasa revealed that he had merely been indulging Akira, who was stalling for time. The moment he stopped attacking, and Akira thought, "This is going well," the slave contract was established. A collar appeared around Akira's neck, symbolizing his status as a slave. The slaves closed in and pinned Akira down. Even teleportation couldn't help him escape. Mayasa ruthlessly stabbed him. His goal was to force Akira to reveal the ability he had used before. Mayasa believed he was the true master of this game and had lured Akira here, but Akira calmly asked, "What if it were the other way around? Isn't it true that I'm now in a position to negotiate with you directly?" This key phrase reminded Mayasa of Yuto's ability. The knife he stabbed with was caught barehanded by Akira. Akira had successfully obtained Yuto's ability thanks to Mayasa's belief, which Akira had subtly manipulated through misleading hints. The chains around the slaves' necks disappeared. Luckily, Akira had prepared well in advance and stuffed packs of beef inside his clothes, which saved him from the stab earlier. To counter Mayasa's plan, they had prepared extensively. Everything had been arranged by Akira from long ago, starting from the day he said he wanted to invite Yuri to find Kumajiri. When Kumajiri caught the slave hunter from the red team, Akira had Yuri imagine herself as someone else to test something. Then, he asked her to imagine being that very slave. Knowing there were spies in the green team, Akira had Yuri transform into the slave to report false information. Instead of giving clear answers, he vaguely hinted at things to let the enemy misinterpret. Thus, Mayasa gradually fell into the trap that had been set. However, Mayasa was not in despair. Through his words, Akira learned that when Ikai was cornered, another Ikai would appear. At the tower, when Ikai was attacked by all three at once, he exploded with power and punched Madoka away. Ikai said that no one who had seen his pathetic form had ever lived to tell the tale. Childhood memories flooded his mind, years of enduring beatings, and that only further fueled his spirit. After transforming, Ikai awakened his brutal power and sent Yuri flying with a kick. Even Kumajiri, with his invincible ability, could only hold out against the barrage of punches. When the 2-second invincibility wore off, Ikai sent Kumajiri flying into a wall with one punch. Ikai spoke of his most humiliating moment, the time when the person who always called himself a benefactor mocked him for reading a manga titled Kingdom, telling him to know his place. Living through beatings, he and his brother had always dreamed of having a kingdom of their own. On the day when blue veins bulged all over Ikai's body was also the moment he killed the man who had always abused him by smashing his head with an ashtray. Since that day, every time he was subjected to constant pain, that feeling would return, and that's how Ikai ended up the way he is now. As for Yuri, she was determined to end this fight. When their fists clashed, one side powered by brute strength, the other by a 5-fold boost, they were perfectly matched. That single punch was enough to shatter the bones in Yuri's arm, while Ikai's only showed a small crack. With 5 minutes of enhanced strength, Yuri swore to finish everything. But Ikai was completely unfazed. Aside from the pain of his childhood memories, he could feel nothing anymore. With rippling muscles, Ikai relentlessly pounded down on the tiny arm of a high school girl. He couldn't understand how, by some force, Yuri still hadn't fallen. In the next blow, Yuri put all her strength into trying to free Ikai, someone who couldn't break free from his childhood trauma and thus could no longer feel pain. At the same time, Yuri was horrified to see her cuffs turn red, meaning her ability had disappeared. Ikai punched her flying, still standing tall despite all her efforts. Mion announced that the red team had used 50 Mion points to seal Yuri's ability. It turned out everything was part of Mayasa's plan. He freed the nearby slaves to trick Erika into thinking he had lost his power, then deliberately leaked information about Isekai to make Erika rush off. After that, he brought out his real device and used it to load Mion points and purchase support privileges. It seemed like everything was over, but the green team used 1 Mion point to send a message. Through this feature, Erika made a call requesting a one-on-one duel, the Battle of Two Kings. He even threatened that if Isekai dared kill Yuri, he would take Mayasa down with him. By loading 15 Mion points, Erika also learned Ikai's location, while they still didn't know where Erika was. Isekai exposed Erika's bluff, knowing that Mayasa must already be dead because normally Mayasa would never interfere in Ikai's fights, but this time was different. Everyone who heard about the duel was worried, even Yuto, who was severely injured after what should have been a fatal shot from Momoko. When Erika arrived, Isekai no longer cared about Mayasa's final wish to build a kingdom. His mind burned only with revenge. This time, Erika came prepared, since his opponent already knew he no longer had the cannon ability. Just as Ikai's punch was about to land, Erika deftly dodged and countered. Thanks to Yuri's imagination and their prior training, his current ability was a tenfold boost in power. With the resolve to finish the fight in one blow, he punched Isekai straight in the gut, causing the man to vomit blood and crash backwards. At last, with Isekai collapsing and the loud applause from the staff, along with the beep from Ikai's device flashing the word dead, the green team had won. While they were celebrating, Mion brought an announcement. All injured participants were lifted onto stretchers by the staff for treatment. Mion told Erika to wait for her at the tower ahead while she went to make preparations. While resting by a stream, Erika met Emoto, who cryptically hinted that he had seen everything about Erika's intriguing ability. Erika knew he had to stall for time to gather information about his opponent. What did he see? What was his power? What could be extracted to gain an edge? But Emoto didn't beat around the bush and immediately revealed his true ability. He conjured a cannon from his arm and fired straight at Erika. This time, Emoto had come to ask Erika to deliver a message to Mion that he was going to act as well. His goal was to kill Mion with his own hands, so he needed Erika's help and arranged to meet again in the 4th program. As he lost consciousness, Erika seemed to return to the real world. He woke up in bed murmuring, "Just another dream." Erika resumed his boring daily life, eating, going to school, skipping class, playing games. A tense game filled with challenges, enemies, and obstacles was the only thing Erika could immerse himself in. His heart was searching for that, so he would keep going. And today, he met Yuri again, his wonderful partner in the game. She was so moved she rushed to hug Erika tightly. There might still be challenges ahead, but at least this time, they were no longer alone.